This one book theme is going to make you thousands of dollars every month. I found it a couple of months ago, and my books have started to sell. Now, not many. They've only been up for about 2 months, but they're selling, and that means I'm going to go down this path a little more. A few of you have asked how to set up everything in BookBolt so that it's all ready for KDP, how to create these medium content books, but you wanted a step-by-step tutorial. So that's what I'm here for today. We're going to go through the details step by step. It's going to be a long one.
That's what she said.
So be prepared. Now, if you are wanting something quick and fast, this is not the place for you today. But what I'm going to do is a couple of things to set you up for success. Number one, each of these steps is written on my website at reneeclancy.com, detail step by step. So sit back, relax, watch today, and then as you start to create your own books, you can jump back and forth. I'm going to create a timeline of where all the major steps are so you can skip back and forth as you go if you need a reminder about a certain step. I'm going to walk you through all the details, like I said, everything from book creation all the way through uploading on KDP. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. First, let's go over trim size. Trim size is the final width and height of your book. It's exactly what you're going to be selecting the 6x9 or 8x8 or 8.5 by 11 when you're talking about the size of your book. Bleed is just a little bit beyond that. Almost imagine like the color needs to bleed past the trim size. Let me show you an example. This is that book I talked about before in my other video that my son made. So the trim size is 8.5 by 11, but the bleed needs to go beyond that just a little bit, because when this gets trimmed, you want to make sure that the color goes beyond the page. You don't want a thin little white line in there. Let me show you another example. Here's one of the pages from my cursing book that I created. Here's an example of, let's say, this is trim size, this is bleed, and then this is your margin. Now watch what happens when I cut right on the trim. You can see that that part that was in the bleed goes beyond the trim. So when it's cut, you have an image that goes all the way to the edge. Let me show you what it looks like when you don't put your bleed past the trim size. We'll just turn this around. Let's say I put my image right here to the edge of the trim and I don't have it go beyond with the bleed. Now here comes the cutter for the book, and this is just an example of what might happen. It might cut to the point where there's a little bit of white on the edge, and nobody wants that. Now, what about margins? Margins are where you want to make sure your safe spots are. So for example, here was my bleed area. Here's my trim and my margins. I'm just going to make sure that all of my text and important information are within my margins. Here in BookBolt, I started typing in sermon notes right here underneath the search products area. It's where I always start, and I had seen that sermon notes was an option for a template within BookBolt. So I wanted to do a little research and see how successful these books were. It looks pretty good. This one, Haley Meyer, she created a few of these, looks like about 217 sales a month. And look, she's got another one here. This one's also doing very well, 185 or so sales. This one, and she just posted these in January. This one down here is about a year old, 138 sales in 2 years, 138 sales every month. So as you can see, it looks like it's steady. It's not like it's one of those that skyrockets and creates, and sells 50,000 in 1 month. But to get a steady income, that real passive income that's going to keep coming month after month, let's create something that everyone is going to want all the time and is evergreen. I want to jump on over to Amazon and do a little bit of BookBolt search in here too. So I typed in sermon notes journal. I could just type in sermon notes, but I like the idea of someone knowing that they can journal in it also. And then with my BookBolt extension, we're going to click on KDP Spy and click Start. And what happens is now it's going to review everything on this page, and it's going to let me know all of the data with each and every sermon notes on here. It says here average number of sales is 253, pretty good. Let's go ahead and organize this. Let's choose which ones are estimated by revenue. Okay, this one Christian Art Gifts notebook has about $1,200 in revenue. This one is about $188. That's enough for me to be able to say that I want to move forward with a sermon notes topic. So in BookBolt, we're going to, on the left-hand side, click Create and Studio. Now let's decide the size of the book that you want. You can see my previous project. You're going to come here to Project and New Project. I want it to be paperback. Let's call this More Sermon Notes because I've done a few of them. Size of the journal, the traditional, is 6x9 for this particular book because also I want it to be able to fit in someone's purse or whatever book bag they have if they're taking it to church. So I'm just going to choose a standard 6x9. And I don't want premium color interior paper. I want a black and white interior and white paper. I'm going to make a bigger book on this one. I'm going to go ahead and do 150 pages. A couple of the other sermon books I saw were a little bit larger like this one. I'm going to choose no bleed because I don't have pictures on each page that are going to need to extend across that trim line. I just want to make sure that everything is within that margin of safety zone so there's no important information outside of the trim. And with the content I'm putting on here, I don't have to be concerned with the bleed. Let's create the project. So here you can see it's given me all of the correct dimensions for my cover, and I'm going to create the cover in here in just a minute. But let me show you our options when it comes to how to set the interior. I always like to keep this very first page. It's that introductory page, the first one you see. So I'm going to do something special on that page. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. And then you come here to the templates. It's the one that looks like a little puzzle. And you can see all the different templates we could use here. I've done a lot of these before. I've used a couple of these for my sermon notes. Let me show you which ones. Over here, I found the prayer journal. I'm going to click on the two variants and it gives me a couple of options. I'm going to alternate these because I want to extend the option for notes. Let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to click this one and that's what I'm going to have on every other page. I imagine that when you're going to be opening a sermon notes book and say you're taking notes in church, you're going to be flipping that front page to the back and writing most of your notes on that front page that might be on your knee or on a table. So I actually want to make sure. So page 1 is that front page that I'm going to put like introduction, something like that. So I don't want something on page 2. I want it on page 3, that very first page. Deselect that. Now I'm going to select every other page because I want this to be, when you open up the book, it to be on the right-hand side of each page. So I'm going to select, as you can see here, this is starting on page 3. So I'm going to select all of the odd pages. Deselect that one and click Continue to Options. You can see here it's highlighted all of the ones where the page is going to be. I want to make sure it lines up with Amazon KDP guidelines, and it gives me that option here. I don't want to keep the aspect ratio in case the page is just, the template is just a little bit shorter. I'm going to click Resize to fill the entire paper, and you'll see what I mean. You'll see a visual of that. Click Submit, and I'm going to click on my next page. You'll see here it says Prayer Journal, and we see when I click on it how these edges, they go all the way to that margin so that I don't have to worry about it being cut off on the edge, but it does fill the entire page. Let's just double check. Let me show you what I mean by having this on the first page. If I come here to the eyeball and I go to Book View, this is going to be my cover. This is going to be that front page that says, welcome to my book or something like that. Then the next page, this is on the right-hand side, so I can flip that left-hand cover over and someone can write just on this particular side of the page. Now, what am I going to put on that next page? Let me show you. I want this next page to be an option for more notes, a little bit more flexibility. So I'm going to come back here to templates. And I have several variations here that are notes options. I'm going to select this one. Let's look at the variants. I like the idea of the notes on the top, and then possibly something underneath to be able to write a picture, draw a picture, or just have some freestyle notes that aren't on lines. So I'm going to choose the narrow blanked one now. It's on all of the odd pages. So I'm going to click here. It's on all the even pages. So I'm going to select even, deselect that page, and it's going to automatically place it into every single page. Now, do I want that first line rule at the top or that rule at the bottom? I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the top. The space between the lines, I'm going to keep that, and then the line width at 2 pixels. And you can change this later if you need to. And here's my example. Let's see what this looks like again in the book view. Okay, there's that first right-hand side. And that's where on that back side, someone can continue to write from the previous page flowing over. But if they don't want that many options for notes, then the next page would open up to the very next day. Something I want to add, I'd like to add some page numbers. I think that would be a nice touch to the book and really help upscale it. I'm going to click on that page. Let's come here and go to templates. And right here, the very first one says blank page with number. I'm going to click on that. I want it to be on all of the pages except for the cover. So I'm going to deselect page 1 and page 2. Now click options. This is where I'm going to decide my options. I want that first page that was selected to say page 1. I kind of found that the text size 60 is a little big. I like this kind of small. I'm going to go ahead and do 40 pixels. And then I'm going to make sure that it's centered and at the bottom of the page. I think that looks pretty good. You can see that page number there at the bottom. And there's page 2 and page 3. Looks great. Let's go ahead and work on our cover. When it comes to the cover, you can express yourself in any way you'd like to. I imagine my mother when I think of a prayer journal, so I wanted something soft with watercolors. So I'm going to come here to the images and come here to Pixabay. I'm going to type in watercolor and see what comes up. Lots of really fun options. I think this is a nice, soft, beautiful option for a book. I've actually already used a lot of these previously, and the ones that already sold are like this lavender flower, this one at the top, this little bouquet of white flowers, that's already sold. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this one. Now this is where I do need to be concerned with that bleed area. The red around here is the bleed. So I need to make sure that this goes all the way past the bleed. This in the center is that spine. I'm going to have this stop right at the very beginning. Now, how are we going to cover this back? Let me show you what we do. Come over here, click rectangle. I'm going to cover the entire thing. And then over here in the panel, I'm just going to drag that rectangle to underneath the picture. Now let's change the color of the rectangle. Select it, get the eyedropper, and I'm going to click that. And now it matches. Now, I really would like to add a sample on this back page so when someone's looking at the book, they're going to know what they get. So I'm just going to come here to template again, go back down to that prayer notes. Here it is. That's the one I selected. I'm going to select the cover page. Let me just show you what I'm going to do. I want to keep the aspect ratio this time. Now, as you can see, it's see-through. So we just need to put a white paper behind it. So again, I'm going to come here to the rectangle. Make this white. And then I'm going to drag this to behind the prayer journal. Now let me zoom in and make sure everything's lined up. Yep, that looks about right. Let me bring in these sides just a little bit. Now remember, I have a second page. So I'm actually going to copy this. I'm going to duplicate that white triangle, bring it down here. And I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller, so it's just a sample. Let me show you a different way to do this if you come across an issue and you need to show more examples on the back page, but that template maybe isn't quite working. I'm going to come here and click on the page that I want to show an example of. When I come here to download, I'm just going to download a current page. Now I'm going to upload it. Click Upload PDF. Remember, there were no margins. I just want it on a select page. Now I'm going to come back up here to the cover, and there it is. Again, this is just a second example or a second way to place something as an example on the back. If for some reason template or whatever there isn't working, this is a workaround that I do. So let's go ahead and look at that next page that I talked about, this one on the inside. This is usually where someone's going to write their name. Oh, what about a title? Okay, this does not have to be fancy. Let me show you how simple this is. Here for text, I'm going to just add a heading. Now, my ones that said, I didn't want the word sermon notes or journal to be giant, so let me show you what I did. I'm going to make this light and change the text. I'm going to make it all capital, and now let's make it smaller. And my other ones I just put up here in the corner. I do want to fix the space in between there. Let me show you how to do that. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And this is where you change the line height so that it can bring it together a little bit. Let's see. And I spelled sermon wrong. There we go. Okay. Why don't we change the color, make it flow with the cover just a little bit more. Click here, and then the dropper. Let's find this really dark, pretty rose color. Yeah, I like that. Nice. Now, this next page, this is going to be black and white. I want to do the exact same image that I did before, this one. And I think it'll be a nice, soft black and white. I want to make sure that it comes all the way to the edge. And there we go. It's really as simple as that. If I wanted to maybe add a scripture on the inside or a quote, we could do that. But let's look at the final product. I look in book view. Okay, I think it looks pretty good. Let's go to the next page. And then we have the page numbers at the bottom. Love it. Now I'm going to download the entire project. Now let's jump on over to KDP and go to create. We're creating a paperback. Now you want to make sure that the keywords are correct and appropriate. You don't want to keyword stuff just by putting a whole bunch of things comma after comma. You want it to be presentable to people and make it pleasurable for someone to want to buy. So first, let's go ahead and come back here to products and let's look at other main keywords that other people used. Okay, sermon notebook, Christian women's sermon notes, Christian sermon notes journal. While I don't want to limit it just to women, I want anybody to be able to purchase it. Just recognize that maybe a women's journal might be a pretty big keyword. So I'm going to start with sermon notebook. And then for my subtitle, let's look and see what other people have done. Christian women's sermon notes journal, 52-week. Okay, I do like that mine has 150 pages. I think that will make it stand out a little bit. And look over here at the keywords, sermon notes, journal, notebook, pages. Okay. By putting Christian sermon notes journal, the only word I've repeated is sermon. Notes is still a keyword, but it's different from notebook. And journal was also a very important keyword. I'm going to add my 150 page, just to double check what other people have done. Journal and church notes. You might want to add the word church. Page notebook for church. I think that sounds great. It's not a part of a series. Add your name. Now, the description. This can be overwhelming for some people. Let me show you what I do. I'm going to come here to ChatGPT. Here in ChatGPT, I'm going to tell it exactly what I'm doing. And then I'm going to just copy the description, make it a one-paragraph description that will encourage buyers. Yep, it has the title, speaker names, notes, action points. Click copy and come back down here. Paste it in there. And this is another really great thing about BookBolt is that it gives you the publishing rights. No sexually explicit items. Now, let's choose our categories. This is, even though we call it a medium content book, KDP considers it a low content book, even though it's not just empty sketch pages. But let's identify it as that. Let's choose our categories. Christian books. I'm going to do a couple of things here. I just selected Christian books and Bibles. I'm going to click General here, and then I'm going to add another category and select Journals. The next category I'm going to add is under the Self-Help category, because here there's a journal writing option. So I'm going to save my categories. Now, what about those keywords that were back over here? Sermon, notes, journal, notebook, pages. Here we go. Leave the publication date, and then save and continue. Keep it black and white interior. This is where my size was already selected. 6x9 is a standard size. Remember, I didn't have a bleed because I don't have images on the inside, so I leave it at no bleed, and I want a matte cover. Now let's upload the manuscript. The manuscript is the entire interior of the book. Next, we will upload our own cover. Now, in this particular book, there was not any AI-generated content, and we're going to launch the previewer and check it out. Okay, you can see here that I made a mistake, and that's okay. I'd rather share my mistakes with you so that we can all learn together. You can see, and KDP shows me this inside the book, it said over here on the left-hand side, I have an error on page 1. So I'm going to go ahead and come here to page 1. I extended that image past the green line, which was the margin line, not the trim. So that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and come on back over here to BookBolt. And here I just changed it. Before I had it stretched all the way beyond, but I'm going to make sure it's right inside that green line. And yep, it's completely centered. And then I'm going to download the entire project again. And it looks like I made the correction correctly. And let's go ahead and go through the rest of the book. Yep, it's within the page. Okay, looks good. And let's go ahead and approve. Let's talk about price. This is completely up to you. Some people believe in pricing their books really low in hoping for that volume. I personally like to profit anywhere from 90 cents to $1.10 per book. But let's go ahead and estimate it in here in US dollars. If I price my book at $6.95, it's going to tell me how much I will profit. So I'll profit $1.37. Let's just see what that looks like if I want to drop it down to maybe $6.25, 95 cents. I think that looks pretty good. I'm happy with 95 cents a book. Click Publish Your Paperback Book. Now it's going to take a few days. You will get an email letting you know if it has or has not been published by KDP, and then you can start promoting it if you want. Here's the final image letting us know it's been submitted, and I hope that this has been a help for you. And that's it. I know that may seem like a lot, but just take things slowly, go step by step, and I know you can do it. Let me know how your journey goes.